Hey guys, this is Anon with some big time IS-4 gameplay for you today. It seems like I go through trends in my Blitz career here a little bit. I've always been a medium driver. I went through a big TD stretch to work on crew skills and kind of fell in love with them again, but lately I've been playing a lot of heavies. Don't know why that is, just kind of happened naturally, but I've been having some really big games in the IS-4. Maybe it's because you just don't see them every day or what it is, but it seems like a lot of players have a hard time dealing with them. So some really good gameplay of it today. This battle I'm on Black Goldville, and I'm going up to the cave area to start. I've been trying everything kind of with this new version. I've done town, but I still find myself preferring caves and mids, so that's where I'm going to start. But when I'm on my way up, since there's 3 tanks clearly in caves, and we have 3 mediums up here that are struggling a bit, I want to get my armor up in there to help them as much as possible. I'm trying to dive in to save this T-62, but he's not really letting me help him too much. Finally he backs off a little bit so I can come up and start getting shots in. Anytime you can get some angling on this hull armor, a lot of tanks are going to have a hard time with it, especially the 4202, since it doesn't have heat and is stuck to Hesh. It's going to have a really hard time with the front of this hull, and that's why I start to push up even more. I figure I might be able to take a shot if he gets to fully aim, which he doesn't really, just damage his modules and my gun. So I'm able to get rid of him really quickly, and right with that we're up a tank, which is beautiful. The IS-7 clearly wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to what was happening behind him, so again it lets push forward. And since I have some teammates to help distract some of the fire, I'm able to play him fairly aggressively. I roll back just to kind of protect my lower plate to make sure he doesn't get greedy with it. But again, it seems to be going pretty well here. Turn on the 704, and luckily get a miss from him. He might have been shooting at the teammate next to me, but it doesn't really matter. And then all of a sudden my team starts to kind of disintegrate around me. We were up by 3 tanks at one point, and now we're down by 1, so I'm pushing the 704 really hard, and now find ourselves in a 2-on-4. Luckily I can finish off the 704, but taking quick stock of what's going on, I've got a 54 fighting a leopard behind me, so I figure he can do okay. There's a E100 to my right and a Jagdpanzer directly next to me. E100's going to have a hard time with my armor unless he starts dealing a lot of heat, so my biggest threat is this Jagdpanzer, and so I'm going to focus on him first, hoping my 54 can at least handle a low health PTA, which he seems to not be having a whole lot of luck with. The E100 charges, so it forces me to kind of fling around, able to get some nice brawling in there. PTA is finally dead, but my 704 dies too, so I'm more focused on him. I wanted the E100 to actually charge my front the way he did, because he's going to have a really hard time penning my front. He can hit the side of my turret when I turn, but to me the Jagdpanzer is the bigger threat at this point, even though he's low health. So now I am continuing the face hug, and I'm actually leading him away intentionally. I'm hoping the Jagdpanzer continues to flip around up top, which I think he's going to do, because staying close like this and getting some wiggle, that E100 is going to have really hard time. So this is really just kind of brawling 101. It's always hard to brawl 1-on-2, but I'm just working my angles here, and I'm really using the E100 to guard against that Jagdpanzer's gun. I want to keep him between us. Luckily he's not pushing as hard as he could be, so I'm going to anytime I can't get the shot on the Jagdpanzer, I'm going to continue with the E100. So this is exactly what I'm doing now. They're getting to the point where I can use this rock and rotate. He gets a little too close since he starts to aim, the Jagdpanzer does, so that's why I pull back into the E100's front. Now he turns away, so it gives me an opportunity to back up and get away from him. And now he's getting kind of desperate and shooting everything at me, but it lets me get rid of that E100. This has been a really difficult situation to begin with, but I think it's a great kind of clinic on that brawling, especially it's difficult to face 2 like this. So I could back out and go around, but because of the way this rock is built, I know he's going to have a hard time hitting me with anything but HE, so I'm just going to take my time and go with the shots that I can. I'm trying to get HE into his cupola there, which is a really difficult shot, but it should be more than enough to finish him off. and finally am able to do it. Heart was definitely racing on this one. It's pretty hard to come back from a situation like that when two very large big health tanks are staring down your face, but was able to pull it out nonetheless. Okay, moving on to Port Bay, again in the IS-4, and I'm going to go ahead and swing up to the river side, which I think is pretty much the only option. I guess if you had a team of all heavies, especially in something like the IS-4s, you could probably still go town, but most likely with the meta, everyone else is going to go around anyway, so I'm going to continue to follow that trend. When I'm in a heavy, I like to kind of come up this line and hug the left side. A lot of people like a lot of different areas. If you go down farther, kind of into the closer to the water, there's some good hold down spots, but I feel a little bit too exposed, so I like to come up against this ridgeline so I can make sure that my left side and back is protected, while also giving myself opportunities to punish any mediums that are across the way that come out a little bit too far. So already I can see some of their tanks starting to push up to my left. I figure they're probably going to come up that ridgeline, which is not my favorite place for them to be, up on that hill, but you can deal with it, especially in something like an IS-7 with bad gun depression. They'll have to roll their front out so far to get any shots off that you can punish them for doing it. T-54 is YOLOing pretty hard, so it's pretty obvious target to go ahead and aim for him. A little disappointed he gets a shell in to take some damage right off the bat, but you know, just kind of nature of the business sometimes. So I'm kind of keeping my eye on everything that's happening right now. I know the IS-7 is to my left. The 268 let himself really exposed there. Unfortunately, I got bounced off his front, which is easy to do off that trollness. But if he's going to stay up there, I want to continue trying to punish him for that too. The IS-7 rolls back so far, my gun was already there. It's a pretty easy shot. I take one from the right, which means that the mediums are starting to get more aggressive, and I definitely want to keep an eye on that. Those are always the biggest threat on this map, especially because we didn't have any tanks to go over and pressure them. But as long as you keep yourself in good cover, they're going to have a hard time shooting you, especially where this side is. And that's why I start to push up a little bit too. Once you get down in this little ridge line here, the mediums can't hit you unless you let yourself expose. So I'm going to help the E3 and get rid of one of the biggest threats left in this big IS-7. And so we can get rid of him pretty quickly. He's let his armor be show all of his weak spots by taking that angle, so I can really kind of push forward. The 268 now is a pretty big threat. He's playing pretty darn gutsy sitting up on that ridge like that, but I also know he's going to have a hard time getting his gun down. Back up so I can get the track shot. And now I'm just kind of peeking, making sure I know where the other tanks are while my track heals. I can see that, you know, two of them are still across the river, so we need to start kind of recouping the front. Shells are hitting to my left, but that's okay. I decided I want to really charge and take out the 268 because you really don't want to be in a crossfire, and that's kind of where we are right now. If we can get the 268, it'll give us ability to kind of turn in and deal with the mediums that are across the river a little bit easier. So I charge really hard, trying to get alongside him here. It's tough in this tank. It's not a speed demon, but get just enough to sneak by him, and once I'm here, this is pretty much over for the 268. I had to take a shell to get it, but I feel like it's a pretty good trade to get rid of the biggest gun they have left. And now I want to use my armor and wait to really start pushing the mediums. Since we've got the T62 already up there, decided to take the safe shot first because we're still on now a 1 versus 3 since I took the time to go ahead and get the shot into the T62. The 140 dives down, which is going to be pretty difficult to deal with at this point, so I just want to keep him in front of me. I'm in the water, so that's going to be challenging, but with the full traverse, I know I should be able to get my gun around and at least punish him. He could have ran away, but he's going for the kill at this point, and I'm okay with that. Start to get some bounces and can get that kill shot done. So again, I just think it's a nice example of using heavies. It's easy to stay back in cover and bounce a lot of shells, but you really have to be careful about when you're advancing. Especially with that 268 and the IS-7, those are important points in the battle to start moving forward to kind of guard that flank, and it worked out for me. And for the last one, I am on Canal, which really will play towards any tank that has strong turret armor. If you play it well on this map, you should be able to handle yourself extremely well unless your team crumbles around you. There's just so many ridge lines that go right next to flat ground as you work up to this corner that there's no excuse to not at least have a good showing unless your team just doesn't support you or you get rushed. So luckily the IS-4 on flat ground is still pretty quick. You can see me cruising at 35, 36, 37 and plus kilometers per hour. So even though it took me a while to get flipped around, I'm now able to push up and help my team fairly quickly. And once this T-262 gets spotted, I know I'm going to work towards him first. Don't have an enormous amount of support here, but using this bush, I know I'm going to be able to keep him from spotting me super easily. The whole reason he was spotted is because where the Leo was anyway. I'm also wondering if he doesn't have all of his crew skills up because he's really not spotting me at all. He's finally obviously got the shot on the Leo, but is allowing us to push forward. The reason I didn't push too hard is exactly what just happened right there. We couldn't see around the ridge line, so I didn't want to go charging after the T-62 and get shocked by other tanks, which is clearly a good call because he has at least one in support, and I don't need to just waste hit points this early. Even more good news, the reasons I didn't charge in was when this Death Star shows up. So now we're still in perfect position because where these two tanks have got themselves set up, they're going to have a hard time coming around and getting shots on us. We have the advantage right here. So a good example of kind of staying patient. Unfortunately, they're squeezing me in here a little bit, so it's hard to move, but just from knowing where the weak spots are on that 183, can kind of start to get a few shells in on him. It's pretty gutsy by our Star Destroyer whipping around to take the shot. I mean, you're going to trade a few shots in a Star Destroyer, but you prefer not to do it with another 183 because it just kind of negates the health. Luckily, we can wipe him out and start to get spots now on this 140, so pretty easy target. The Centurion is there, we know he's there. He's not really a huge threat since he's kind of staying off to the side. Keeping an eye on him in my peripherals, you can see I'm worried that he's going to start coming up the ridgeline and back down, but you can also see on the mini-map that we've got two tanks supporting in town, so he's going to have a hard time pushing too hard. I come around the corner and the 140 doesn't get lit up again, so that lets me know that he has started to run away a bit, and I'm not going to have to worry about him sneaking shells in unless he comes back over and then gets spotted. So I can really focus on the Centurion, which is a really great tank, and this is a map that it plays well in, so I'd rather not let him escape from us. Move forward, get that kill, and again, I always like to use my momentum to propel me towards the next tank or where I want to go as much as possible, unless it's a shot you absolutely 100% have to make. So that really kind of rocketed me forward here. We're up pretty large at this point, but I've been on the front line the entire time, so just a good example of having and taking those shots or putting yourself in position to kind of protect the rest of your team when it makes sense. At the same time, you don't want to do it by trading shots so much. You just want to pressure the team, especially in something as extremely heavy as the IS-4, to make them take shots at you and hopefully miss, so you're still supporting your team with it. And doing damage without, or with keeping that nice damage ratio going. So when we're in a situation like this where we're up so many tanks, I'm going to push much, much harder, and that's why I go straight at this IS-4. You don't want to give them an opportunity to get back into the game. So he's going to focus on the lower health tank, which is smart, except that it lets me right by him, and so we can finish him off pretty quickly. So this was obviously an easier game than the other two, but some nice example of good heavy work. And so I wanted to share that, and hopefully this helps, especially with a little bit of IS-4 running.